you could use Buckingham Palace for the Houses of Parliament. And that, to me, is a really interesting what if in history. What if the Houses of Parliament had been where Buckingham Palace is now? Well, perhaps quite sensibly.
Today we mourn the passing of a remarkable sovereign. It is a deep private loss for the royal family, and our first thoughts are with them at this time. The nation shares in their grief.
At the workings of the palace, and he was very disappointed. The sewers were bad. One team washed the outside of the windows, the other team washed the inside of the windows, so the windows were never perfectly clean. No one laid a proper fire.
As there is across the Commonwealth, to which the late Queen was so devoted. Around the world, people are united in mourning and united in celebrating her life. This togetherness.
Crowds have swarmed Buckingham Palace just moments after the Reform Party pulled off a political earthquake, securing a 74-seat majority no one saw coming. The chants, loud, the message, crystal clear: we want elections, and we want them now. Britain may never be the same again. It is truly historic that the Reform Party rose from obscurity to power in such a short period of time. Few anticipated the mandate that was delivered in the most recent general election. Under a wave of anti-establishment populism, traditional Tory and Labour strongholds fell. Reform ran on a platform of economic autonomy, immigration control, and a restoration to British values, and it was successful, profoundly. And now the establishment is in a panic as Reform takes control of the House of Commons. Police kept a vigilant but non-aggressive presence as the crowd outside Buckingham Palace grew. Signs bearing the phrases, "We want reform, not rhetoric," and "monarchy or democracy" were carried by protesters, who also hoisted Union Jacks. Some urged King Charles to back the public's desire for action by stepping in, even if only symbolically.
The one on the front page of all the newspapers, and when we think of monarchy, we think of Buckingham Palace. All the great moments of history in the 20th century, all the great moments of royal history have been from Buckingham Palace.
Nobody under the age of 70 has known anything other than Queen Elizabeth II on the throne. For the vast majority of us,
palaces are these great stages for monarchy, and yet there's a contrast, because palaces are meant to install awe in the people. They're about majesty and dignity, but
the late Queen has been simply the Queen, the only Queen, above all else, our Queen. As we mourn her loss,
the monarchy's silence was ridiculed by others, who questioned why the head of state had failed to see the political upheaval that was rocking the government's foundations. Stunned members of Parliament gathered in emergency sessions inside Parliament. In a cautious remark, Keir Starmer acknowledged the electorate's clear demand for change, despite the fact that Labour had collapsed in important northern constituencies. In a late-night press conference, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who was clearly shaken, stated that the government would accept the results and adjust accordingly. But the fiery leader of Reform didn't waste any time. He said, "The people have spoken, not once, not with hesitation, but with fury," as he stood in front of applauding fans. Additionally, they have decided to completely overhaul the nation. The speed at which the momentum changed makes this moment even more remarkable. Reform was trailing by single digits in the majority of national polls just a year ago. However, a number of scandals, crises related to the cost of living, and what many perceived as out-of-touch leadership from both the Conservatives and Labour parties stoked a desire for change. That hunger was taken by Reform, which used it to gain power. The ramifications are profound. Markets responded with volatility on the economic front. Following the announcement of the Reform majority, investors became extremely cautious due to the party's strong anti-globalisation attitude and vows to restructure trade deals, which caused the pound to plummet.
Really, behind those closed doors, there's something totally different. There's murders. There's sex scandals, there's total chaos, there's damp, there's falling down roofs, there's chilly rooms, there's total lack of efficient organisation.
We should also treasure her life, our longest serving and greatest ever monarch. Above the clashes of politics, she stood not for what the nation fought over, but what it agreed upon. In crisis, she reassured us.
And that is the land that Buckingham Palace is now built on. So he buys that land, but he doesn't really want it. So it starts to be leased out, it starts to be, people live on it.
We will honour the late Queen's memory by keeping alive the values of public service she embodied. For 70 years, Queen Elizabeth II stood as the head of our country.
Many small company associations, however, applauded the move, referring to it as a once-in-a-generation reset for British business. The nation is now sharply split on social issues. Reformers saw the win as a critique of aristocratic politics and decades of bureaucratic inertia. Critics worry about a shift toward isolationism and the emergence of nationalist sentiment. Concern over what reforms' strict regulations would imply for minority communities is growing in multicultural neighbourhoods. The UK's partners throughout the world are keeping a careful eye on things. In a succinct but direct statement, Brussels urged Britain to honour existing commitments. While refusing to comment on the new majority, US authorities across the Atlantic emphasised the importance of democratic institutions. Furthermore, there are already concerns throughout the Commonwealth as to whether this represents a more significant change in Britain's foreign policy stance. Despite all of the uncertainty, one thing is certain: the UK has changed. Early indications suggest that the Reform Party will act swiftly, perhaps within days, as they are now prepared to establish a government. A freeze on foreign aid, restrictions on illegal immigration, and extensive tax code reforms are all part of the proposed emergency legislation. According to some insiders, negotiations to renegotiate the UK's alignment with specific international accords are already in progress. Some people perceive danger in the streets, while others see promise. However, everyone acknowledges that this is not your typical political shift. Slow motion, live streaming, tweeting, and television are all revolutionising the way history is being rewritten in real time. In a brief statement, Buckingham Palace acknowledged the public protest.
James I does is he sells some of the freehold and he also keeps some of it. What he wants to do is grow mulberry bushes on there so he can make British silk, and it's a total disaster. He doesn't have the right type of mulberry bush and the silk is not good. So,
a reminder of our shared values, values which I know will be upheld by her beloved son Charles, our new king. So as our great Elizabethan era comes to an end,
Georgians come to the throne and they think, oh, I'd like that. That looks quite cosy. St James's Palace is looking a bit small to me. Now, what about building something on there? And the Georges want this palace, but they can't have it because it's the Duke of Buckingham.
the values of service always endures. And the obvious love the late Queen displayed for Britain, the British people gave back in return. That is why there is such an outpouring of grief across the nation today.
But did not comment on the election's outcome. According to constitutional tradition, the king is above politics, but the pressure must be tremendous inside those palatial walls. Despite being symbolic, the monarchy nevertheless serves as a gauge of the spirit of the country, and that mood is stormy today. Will the Crown say nothing as a new political system emerges, or will history see this as the time when the monarchy re-established a connection with the populace by quiet power and symbolism rather than speeches? Meanwhile, the chanting goes on outside the palace gates. The sky grows darker, illuminated by flares. Older voters, weary of decades of unfulfilled promises, join forces with young voters, many of whom are voting for the first time. Some people chuckle, some people weep. One thing unites them all: left and right. And in between, Britain simply turned the page. Furthermore, nobody at all knows what will happen next.